Good afternoon, guys, and welcome to the podcast. If you ever want to hear about how to succeed on at e-commerce via Amazon or other websites and how to grow and scale your e-commerce business, I've got Corey Ganim from North Carolina here to share his expertise and wisdom and insights to the audience. So, Corey, welcome.
Hey, man. Thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to getting into it. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, briefly introduce yourself, and we'll dive right into the questions.
Yeah, so my name is Corey Ganim. I'm 29 years old. I live here in Charlotte, North Carolina. I actually started my career in corporate IT sales. So I worked for IBM for about 2 years right out of college. Got some really good sales training there, but then, quickly decided I wanted to do my own thing. Around that time is when I started selling things on Amazon, kind of just as a side hustle. And it was about 2 years into my career with IBM that I was like, you know what? I'm done with this. I'm just going to go out and try to make this Amazon thing work, even though I wasn't really making that much money with it yet at the time. And fast forward here I guess that was about 5 years ago, or actually, I guess about 6 years ago now. And I've been doing it full time ever since. And I built a business around it, have built a community of other Amazon sellers, as well as an audience on social media.
Yeah, I really love that. And so, we'll dive right into the question. And you have 5 pillars of Amazon Wholesale, a proven framework for success. Elaborate on that.
Yeah, so really, I think it makes sense to define the wholesale business model. So when it comes to selling on Amazon, there's a bunch of different ways to go about it. There's a bunch of different business models. But the business model that I practice and that I teach is called wholesale. And the way that it works is we're buying products in bulk directly from the manufacturer or from a distributor that carries that manufacturer, right? So we're buying, 500, 1,000, 5,000 units of a product at a time in bulk and then turning around and selling them on Amazon. So the 5 pillars of Amazon wholesale really just come down. The first pillar is finding suppliers. Second pillar is contacting suppliers. Third pillar is sourcing products. Fourth pillar is shipping and logistics. And then the fifth pillar is leveraging virtual talent to scale. So that's our framework around hiring virtual assistants from overseas, taking advantage of the economies of scale there, and then hiring those folks to do a lot of the heavy lifting inside your business.
Interesting. And I have to talk to you more about this. And so, leveraging systems, you also mentioned community, which we'll discuss in the latter half. So you scale Amazon business without ads and you perfected the art of organic growth, selling over 13 million of products. So how can others replicate your success?
Yeah, so really success on Amazon and success with this business model in particular, it comes down to certain character qualities and certain things that people have about them. So like one of those traits in particular is persistence, right? I've told this story a million times, but I'm sure your audience isn't familiar. My very best supplier came from 3.5 years of follow-up. So I reached out to this supplier when it was one of the first suppliers I ever reached out to. And I remember I called them up. I said, hey, my name's Corey Ganim. I love your products. Love to, start selling them in my business. And they were basically like, hey, we don't want any Amazon sellers. We've got our people. We're good to go. And I said, okay, well, do you mind if I follow up once a quarter? And then fast forward 3.5 years, they finally gave me the opportunity to pitch for that account. And I got that account. And now it's my best one, right? But persistence is kind of the feature that got me that account and that has gotten a lot of other people, suppliers that normally they wouldn't be able to work with. So persistence is one, consistency is the other, right? Something that we see a lot of beginners, really a mistake that they make is they get excited about the business, they jump in, and then they do a ton of outreach for about a week, right? They call 100 suppliers in a week. And then it's like they don't do anything for the next 2 weeks. And then they decide they want to get back into it again. So then they call 100 more suppliers. And it's like they haven't built that momentum, right? They're not consistent enough. What I tell people is you're going to get better results calling 3 new suppliers per day, doing that for 30 days straight, than you would calling, let's say, 100 suppliers this week and then not calling any for 2 or 3 weeks. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. It's the same thing like eating right or working out. It's like, it's 1 hour a day for the whole month versus, 10 hours in one day. And then you've got injuries and sore. And
Yeah, then you can't go back in the gym for 2 weeks, right? It's the exact same concept. It's really just a little bit every day with the keywords being every day, right?
Yeah. So, and I really love that idea of persistence and consistency and turning long-term relationships into high-value partnerships. The next question I have for you is, how is e-commerce different today than it was back in the early 2000s?
Yeah, great question. So I really, to be honest, I got into e-commerce in 2017, right? So that was the year I graduated college, and I got into e-commerce really right after college. And so I can only speak to, the changes from then till now, I guess, which is about coming up on 8 years. But, when I started, it was definitely still, it was a big thing. A lot of people were doing it, but it was still kind of under the radar, I guess, in the sense that you didn't have the 5,000 people on Instagram selling courses driving Lambos that you do today, right? So a lot more people are aware of it today than were back in 2017 when I started, but it's also a bigger marketplace, right? So there's more opportunity than ever. Yeah, there might be more competition than ever, but there's still so much opportunity, right? That's the way I see it. And then the other side of the coin is that Amazon as a platform has gotten a lot more professional in the sense that you can no longer be an unsophisticated seller who keeps poor records, who doesn't vet their products, who doesn't vet their suppliers. You can't get away with that anymore, right? This year in particular, Amazon has come down hard on sellers who are basically small time, right? They've implemented a lot of policy changes, and they've done a lot of things to really promote serious, legitimate, professional brands and sellers, and to kind of stifle these smaller, more fly-by-night sellers.
Uh, yeah. And how is e-commerce changing with the rise of artificial intelligence? How are like the new, because you mentioned systems and community. I'm curious about how you're thinking about AI.
Yeah, so AI it's really interesting in our space. So I'll be honest, I haven't messed around with it as much as I would like, but I have definitely noticed a few use cases where AI is really beneficial, not just for e-commerce as a whole, but for specifically what I do, which is Amazon wholesale. So one thing that I love to do is go to trade shows and meet brands and distributors in person, face to face at trade shows. I firmly believe it's by far the best way to build this business, especially if you're a salesperson and you can talk to people, right? And you can kind of talk the talk. But one thing that I've had a lot of luck using ChatGPT to do is locate pretty qualified list of trade shows in any given area and in any given category, right? And the beauty of having that list is, yeah, I can go to that trade show in person, right? That's best case scenario. But what I can also do is I can go on that trade show's website. I can look at their list of exhibitors, and from there, that's almost like my leads list, right? Like we're going to a trade show on February 1st in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania with our community. And this, I was just looking at it a couple hours ago. This show has, I think it's 984 total exhibitors. And so what we're doing is we have a team kind of combing through that list and almost making a short list of, hey, this brand looks really good. They look like they need help on Amazon. Or, hey, this brand's selling, $50,000 a month on Amazon. Let's go try and talk to them. And so when we get to the show, we know exactly who we're going to talk to, and we have time for some chance encounters in between, right? Which are always great at trade shows.
Yeah, really fascinating. And the next question I have for you is, so, there was, stories like especially during the pandemic, like especially in conferences or just, people planning events, and they bought all this inventory and it just went all to waste. And, with e-commerce, you buy all these suppliers. Talk about how you mitigate that risk and avoid, putting money into something that doesn't pan out.
Yeah, and so that is actually the beauty of my model, the wholesale business model. And to kind of illustrate that point, I will contrast it to another very popular business model for selling on Amazon, which is commonly referred to as private label, right? So I'm sure I know your audience is entrepreneurs. I'm sure there's somebody listening to this that has tried to start a private label brand and sell it on Amazon. And listen, that's a good model. I know people who have success with it, but the issue with that model is exactly like you said. There's not really any way to mitigate risk, right? You're going to have to put up minimum 15 to 20K to launch this brand from scratch. You've got to build this brand from scratch. You've got to market this brand. Nobody in the world has heard of this brand. So as you can probably imagine, it's a very risky endeavor, right? Now, yes, there can be a great payoff, but with my model, the wholesale business model, we're selling brand name products that people are already searching for, right? I'm not having to reinvent the wheel. I'm not having to spend money on ads. I'm buying, let's say, a bar of Dove soap for $2 and selling it on Amazon for, say, $9, right? That's all I'm doing is I'm finding that arbitrage opportunity and doing that either by working directly with a brand and partnering directly with the brand, or from buying from a large reputable distributor that I can build a long-term relationship with, kind of like you said.
Yeah. The other question I have for you is, how does drop shipping fit into your business model?
Yeah, so it's funny. I feel like us Amazon sellers, it's almost like an industry joke where it's like when somebody asks what you do and you say e-commerce, their response is, "Oh, so like drop shipping?" Right? Like that's the most common, it's like the most common question or, thought that I get when I tell people what I do. But so our model is not drop shipping, right? So when we buy inventory, we're paying for it, we're taking possession of it, we're storing it in our warehouse, or we're sending it to Amazon and having Amazon store it at their warehouse. And so the difference between us and somebody who would be drop shipping, as I'm sure you know, right? Drop shippers don't buy the inventory until they have an order in hand, right? So customer buys the item and then the drop shipper buys it from their supplier and then just drop ships it to their customer. That's why it's called drop shipping. So I know people who do the wholesale business model, right? What I do with in a drop shipping format, and they crush it, right? I know some people crushing it with this, but it's just not my model, right? There's more nuance to it, but a lot of potential. Now I will say, right, I think I'm almost kind of required to say drop shipping on Amazon is only allowed if you're doing it from a distributor or directly from the manufacturer, and that order is being shipped in generic packaging. All right, that's very important because a lot of people, they used to drop ship on Amazon, but they were buying from Target or Walmart, or they were drop shipping from Costco. So when the customer gets that box, they get a Walmart package and they're like, wait, I thought I ordered this from Amazon, right? You see what I mean? There's like a lot of confusion, and it's a bad look to Amazon, and it's just a bad customer experience. So I'd say this is within probably 3 years or so, Amazon came out and said, hey, no more drop shipping from retail. If you do, we're going to shut down your account. Drop shipping is only okay if it's coming from the brand or from a distributor in just generic vanilla packaging, right? So the people that are doing that actually are doing really well. I know a few people who are.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember those days when I would buy off of Amazon and something would come in from India or China or Philippines. And it was just like, oh,
Yeah, it's just like I mean, they're literally just drop shipped it from overseas, right? Ton of people do it. Yeah, it is what it is.
so talk about, because I know your wholesale model, and how is it different from, I know a lot of people like TikTok and Instagram sellers, they sell via affiliates. So talk about your model versus affiliate products.
Yeah, so with affiliate products, again, it's my understanding that with affiliate products, you don't actually have to you're not you're not holding inventory, right? You're just essentially referring somebody to somebody else's product. So there's much less overhead. You're not having to buy inventory. It's not capital intensive. But like I said earlier, with my business model, we're having to buy inventory up front, right? So this is a business that's incredibly capital intensive and where you've got to spend money to make money, right? It's almost like the more money you can spend on inventory, the more money you're going to make. That's exactly how it works. So, we're having to put down large sums of cash at a time to buy this inventory or to reserve this inventory if it hasn't come in yet, with the hope and the, understanding that 30, 60 days from now, we'll have sold that inventory for, let's say 20, 25% more than what we bought it for.
Uh-huh. Yeah. What is your view on, because it sounds like you buy very niche and focused products, and how do you determine product market fit? Because, a lot of people on Amazon, they just sell just everything. Whereas you, looks like you hone down. How do you determine the optimal product market fit?
Yeah, good question. So, and you say that we've honed down. We have a little bit, like we sell really across a range of categories. I'd say tools and automotive is my favorite category. I love to sell in that category for a number of reasons. But the way that you kind of determine, well, what do you sell? What do you not sell? How many do you buy? It's all about the data, right? Every decision we're making, every time we're deciding whether to buy something or whether not to buy something or how many to buy, is always by going off the data. So there's a couple key tools that we use. Both of them are paid, but they're 100% essential for operating this business model. One is called Keepa, and one is called Seller Amp. And those pretty much tell you how well is it selling, how many can I expect to sell, and how much money do I expect to make if I sold X amount, right? So you can almost like plug in a couple of different numbers and as well as your cost and see what your potential profit's going to look like. And then from there, it's just making that data-driven decision, knowing that, okay, I'm making this decision based on data, so it's a good decision, but that 10 to 15% of the time, something might happen that is out of our control that causes us to lose money on that product, right? But again, when you're essentially playing a casino where 85% of the time you're winning, then that's, you want to keep buying more products because that's kind of the success rate at scale.
Yeah. How do you geo arbitrage and leverage virtual assistants to scale your e-commerce business? I'm really curious.
Yeah, so I've got a couple folks on my team from overseas. So we've got, let's see, 2 in the Philippines on behalf of the Amazon business. So they more or less run the Amazon business. And then we've got, let's see, we've got 3 more who do sourcing, same type of work, right? They do sourcing for wholesale products, but within our community business. And then we've got 1 more from the Philippines who is just more of an admin assistant, right? So we've got a lot of folks from overseas, like I said, specifically over in the Philippines. And the reason I like hiring from there specifically is just because the culture fit. They know what's going on in the US. They speak great English. It's very easy they're exactly 12 hours. Well, I guess right now I think they're 13 hours ahead. So, it's 1:26 p.m. right now for me at least. It's, 2:26 a.m. right now there for them. But it's very common for them to work US hours, right? It's just because it's completely flipped. So my people, typically they work earlier in the morning, which is more convenient for them. But I tell them, I'm like, guys, I don't really care what hours you work as long as we're getting results, right? And so, yeah, they've been great. I love them, and they're great workers, great people.
Yeah. Yeah. My BA social media is they're hardworking and they're very talented and
Yep.
like $6 to $10 an hour for great quality work is, I mean, it's just, here in the States, you probably pay 50, 60 an hour.
Oh, at least. Yeah. So it's funny you say that because somebody was asking me today, like as far as my pay scale for my team. So I think the lowest one on our team, we actually just raised her from $4 per hour to $5 per hour. And then we've got, so Criselda, who's my head of operations in the actual Amazon business, she literally runs that entire business. And she's making, I want to say about 3,500 US per month plus bonus, which, I mean, no exaggeration for the audience here. That is like probably, equivalent to 20 to 30K per month US, probably, right? Like she is doing very well, right? But it's because she's running a large business and she does a great job of that.
Yeah. I'm also curious, networking and community building, how you've done it and how can that be a game changer for e-commerce entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so I mean the best way I can kind of describe the whole community that we built and the idea behind it and how it applies to other people is, I mean, my own experience, right? I think it was my first 5 years of selling on Amazon. I could count the number of other Amazon sellers that I know on one hand. It was 2 people. It was this kid, Philip, that I met in a Facebook group, who's now in my mastermind community, who's like absolutely crushed it over the years. Like we worked together over the years. And then it was one other guy who I don't even really know anymore, right? And anybody who's sold on Amazon before knows that this business, like we have very specific problems to this business. It's like there's some days where I'm like, nobody gets what I'm going through except other people who sell on Amazon, And so for the first 5 years, I didn't have anybody like that to bounce those ideas off of or to really, talk through things with or talk strategy. And so it was about 5 years into it that I actually joined a group, a large, I guess, networking group, if you want to call it that, of Amazon sellers. The requirement to join is you must be doing 7 figures per year or more in revenue. So it was everybody in the group was legit. And there was like 600 people in the group.
Wow.
And I learned a ton from these guys, learned a ton. But what I found is that group was actually more catered to private label, right? That business model that I mentioned earlier. So like everybody in this group was crushing it, but they were all crushing it in private label. And like I said, I'm a wholesale guy. So like, even though like, yes, only sometimes other Amazon sellers understand my problems, only other wholesale sellers understand my problems. You see what I mean? It goes a level deeper. So I was thinking to myself, I'm like, you know what? This community is great. These are great people. I want to have this, but I want to have it for wholesale. You see what I mean? So that's when, I guess it was October of 2023 is when I started our mastermind community. So I invited people close to me that I knew were large sellers to become part of just a higher level group where we meet once a week. And it's kind of grown from there. We've got, I think, about 65 members inside the mastermind today. And we've since launched a just more of a coaching community for folks who are trying to get to that 7-figure level. And I think we're at 98 people in that community. So we're 2 away from 100, which is a milestone that we set a while ago. And we just got a really good group, supportive group of really good people. And I'm proud of it.
Yeah. I'm very fascinated with e-commerce. And what, one last question, before we, we part is, how are Amazon sellers different from Shopify and eBay and Alibaba? Is it the same or same concepts, or is this Amazon is the best place, or talk about that?
Yeah, so I think it all comes down to your business model. So for my business model, for what we do, which is, again, we're buying brand name products that people are already searching for and selling them at scale. So for that business model, Amazon's really the only platform where it makes sense, at least at scale, because think about it, Amazon, like millions of people aren't going to other websites to search for, Dove shampoo or Gillette razors or, fishing rods every single month, right? They're doing that on Amazon. So if I want to do this specific model, Amazon's really the place to do it. Now, if I want to launch my own brand from scratch, right? Private label, like we said, yeah, Amazon is definitely where I want to do it and spend some of my effort, but I also want to spend a lot of my time on Shopify, right? I want to build that traffic and that channel that I own that Amazon can't take away from me if they decide to, right? And so again, I think it depends on the business model and it depends on the goal as well.
Yeah. Fascinating. How can people find out more about you, learn about your mastermind, and reach out to you and connect with you?
Yeah, so best way to connect with me would be I've got a free resource for your audience. It is going to be a free 5-day email course. So every day, like I mentioned at the beginning of this interview, right, the 5 pillars of Amazon Wholesale. This is a 5-day email sequence where each day is dedicated to one pillar of Amazon Wholesale. And I promise you, you'll learn more from these 5 emails than you'll learn in like a $2,000 Amazon course. That is legitimately the feedback I've gotten. So you can get that at freewholesaleguide.com. And like I said, it's completely free and you guys can hit me up just by replying to those emails.
Yeah. Awesome. I really enjoyed this conversation, and keep up the great work.
Thank you so much.